Hello, hello. Okay, we are live here. Let's kick this off. My name is Ben Perro. I'm board member of the ESTA, the Esports Trade Association. Appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll give folks a couple minutes as they come in here. But while we wait for that, let's start with some introductions. I'm joined here by Jimmy and Rebecca, two of my favorite people in the esports industry. For anyone tuning in that was at the ESTA conference last fall, you might recognize us. We were on a panel together then talking about insights at the time. So this will be a bit of an update and a conversation about what's happening in the world of esports globally, particularly here in the US where we all reside. So with that, Rebecca, if you would please let our listeners know a little bit about yourself and your involvement in the esports industry.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ben. And hey, Jimmy, it's great to get the band back together. I know earlier last year was such a blast and kind of doing the inaugural data panel. I'm excited and thrilled to be welcome back. So, as the intro said, my name is Rebecca DeFreitas. I'm a director of customer engagement here at Hargrove by Encore. I'm based in Washington, D.C. We are an agency subsidiary of Encore, which is the largest world event company in the world. Where I come into esports is about a year and a half ago. My master's thesis was Gen Z and digitizing the live event brand through esports. The thesis itself went around viral with around 15,000 downloads from the International Federation of IT Travel and Tourism. It's been ideated as one of the first aspects of research combining the event world with the esport demographic. Very long answer to your short question, Ben. I turn it over to Jimmy, who also has quite the staple in the esports economy as well.
Yeah, that was a great intro, Rebecca and Ben, and yeah, for everyone, we were together in Chicago, had a really great time. Hope everyone can meet us there again this year in October. My name is Jimmy Barada. I was an attorney for about 7 or so years, transitioned into esports in 2017, 2018, kind of doing projects representing talent that wanted to get into the space. I'm currently the chief gaming officer for Holodeck Media, which is a fancy title to say I do operations and kind of help run the ship for our CEO. I'm also an investor in XSET, if you guys are familiar with a competitive Oregon lifestyle brand with former FaZe Clan executives. I teach esports at the University of California in Irvine, where I'm very happy to kind of be involved over there. And then I also volunteer a good amount of my time for the Tiger Woods Foundation here in Anaheim, California, where we're looking to get into esports and attract that next generation, I think, of students and kids, and finding where they're hanging out, what they're doing, and what we can do to stay in front of them and provide them with our resources.
So you don't have a lot on your plate at all. You're always looking for more things to do, right? Wow, that's a lot.
Get a lot of sleep, Ben. A lot of sleep.
And before I introduce myself, tell our listeners a little bit more about Holodeck. And I have the opportunity to partner with you guys a little bit with the Business of Esports podcast. But yeah, if you would, Jimmy, give us some more context.
Yeah, thank you. So Holodeck is a media company. We believe that esports really is that nexus of popular culture and the gateway to new users and new audiences. So whether you're a company like Morgan Stanley or DraftKings, eventually you're going to want to target, I think, that gaming audience that's coming here, spending their time here, playing games, consuming gaming content and media. So as Ben mentioned, we have at Holodeck an awesome partnership with YouGov. We present YouGov Insights live every Wednesday night on the Business of Esports, which is our flagship product. We've recently launched some more metaverse-themed products as well. But in essence, Holodeck owns some podcasts, some social pages. We create content for any user, whether you like emails directed to your inbox or to come on our website and read our stories, or if you like to listen to our podcast, which is distributed on Apple, Spotify, Fox Sports. And yeah, we had Ben on the show not more than a week ago, where we did some live YouGov Insights talking about trends and very similar topics, I think, to what we're going to discuss today. So little, I guess, pre-rehearsal for this, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And can't recommend to everyone, go check out Holodeck, Business of Esports podcast, if you aren't a listener already. But our viewers here are definitely your demographics. So I'm sure there's already a lot of overlap. And just to round out intros here, Ben Pero, Senior Sales Director for the Esports and Gaming sector at YouGov, and also Board Director, Chair of the Insights and Research group at the Esports Trade Association. So at YouGov, in that role there, I work with esports businesses, whether it's teams, agencies, brands that are activating in the esports and gaming ecosystem, and also various kind of platforms, companies that are putting on gaming tournaments, et cetera, to help them gain insights onto who the esports audience is, the brands they buy, their demographics, their attitudes and consumer behaviors, all the juicy goodness that if you're going into a pitch for a partnership, you need to kind of bring some color to the narrative about why the esports audience is a good fit for the brand that you're approaching. And then we have other solutions to help companies track that success. So I'm living in mass amounts of consumer insights data all the time. I sometimes dream about it, and excited to kind of share some things today. But this will be really pretty kind of loose discussion about some kind of key points that myself, Jimmy, and Rebecca have seen as like big trends in the space. But we also want to invite everyone in the chat to ask questions, or if you have any kind of general topics that you are top of mind for you and you think we should have a discussion about. We want to kind of test out a new style of doing these things here and make it collaborative and fun. If you're eating lunch, it is your lunch hour, sit back and enjoy. So guys, let's kick right in here. We had a couple topics we want to discuss. I think Jimmy brought up the fact that let's start with China. China is ending their gaming freeze. That has potentially huge implications for the amount of time that people are spending in that part of the world and playing games, and then engaging with esports in general. What are your thoughts, guys? How big is this to the global industry?
Okay, sorry. I was offering Rebecca the chance to go first. Yeah, this is a really interesting and exciting news break, story, decision, development out of that region. I think a lot of people, when they think esports, depending on where they're located, will naturally think of North American esports, and then will typically think of Asian esports, and China in particular. Interesting, because me personally, I always go to Latin America and the Middle East, but that's just my focus and areas that I'm interested in and excited about. But I would guess and would love YouGov to confirm my thought that most people probably are leaning towards, or when they think esports, think Asian esports, Chinese esports, within the first 2 or 3 touch points of that topic. We know a number of months ago, China was starting to crack down all across the industry, gaming time and games that were available in the region. Fortnite shutting down their servers. Which was kind of funny because you also saw other activations that were probably months in the making that were being released. And you're like, ooh, that's just really poor timing, because it seems to be a culture in an area that's not very open, right? Not very accommodating, I think, of our industry. So that it was something they endured for a number of months. I think it's great to see it opening again, because obviously growth and opportunity are good for all of us. But as someone that has a business in North America in esports, I still would be hesitant to do anything in that region, because you see how volatile it can be and just how unpredictable it could be. Yeah. So that's my quick take on it, but would love to pass it to you guys, and we can back and forth on this.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I think really where so often people, and Jimmy, with your operations background, you could probably acquiesce to this, the EMEA market is something that's almost an afterthought, right? So I think what we're seeing with this particular China situation is that the EMEA market is just going to become Asia, right? So I think that's going to completely change the business model of how these people are approaching. To be a little bit blunt, I lived in China. I was part of this Guanxi, which is the Shada version of business interpretation. So what we're going to see here is not only a representation of the bullish Chinese esport market, and also esports and games. And as we know it, were technically created in Korea. So really how it comes through is not only are you doing the Asian translation in between the countries, markets themselves, but also the Sino-American relationships that you're going to have for the Chinese market, and how that looks not only for revenue to come through in a separate country delegation, but also the amount of workforce that you're going to see, either from people who are now leaving those jobs or who've been sanctioned by the state, the CCCP, the Communist Party of China, to now do the work for the sake of the country. Really, some things that we aren't familiar with in China is that so much of the state regulated business is there's not a direct example that we have here in the West. So it really is a different type of entity.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of just how much more engagement there is, since if they're just opening, there isn't a crackdown or limitations to how much time people can spend with gaming. Obviously, already a huge market for gaming. And I just want to just generally kind of apologize in advance for any scratching in the background here. Have a new puppy, and he wants to get his voice in here too. So moving on to our next topic. I think we can pivot here on China. Obviously, there's a lot of buzz around the metaverse, and I was at an event hosted by the IAB, the International Advertising Bureau, in New York last week. It was their first inaugural esports, or rather play fronts. So the first inaugural kind of media upfronts, but for gaming. So it's really interesting kind of conversations around in-game advertising and monetizing gamified experiences. And the metaverse was obviously a very buzzy word there. And so I think for China in particular, it'll be interesting to see how much they try to control metaverses in their region. But more broadly, I'd love to get your take on the metaverse. How real is this thing? How quick is it coming? How's the esports business going to potentially benefit from it? And then I have some insights I can share on kind of the attitudes and opinions about the metaverse from the gamers' perspectives. But first to you guys.
I'll kick this one off, Jimmy. We'll just trade, go back and forth. Yeah. So I think really what it comes, it's introduced a whole new vernacular, a whole new vocabulary, a whole new world. We thought that we had the grasp on esports and gaming. Just kidding. Interoperability is now this unification of avatars and worlds and revenue and sponsorships. And to your point, Ben, partnerships, right? So we're seeing it really explode in the way that it continues to be noisy. We still are looking for that disciplined aesthetic of where is the esport and gaming role and all that, because I think sometimes to a consumer who's just seeing it, it's all the same, which we know it's not. And so I think that's really where we have the opportunity here to dive deeper. Some of the really cool, sexy things that people are talking about is Epic Game $2 billion investment, right? What does that say? How does that set a precedence for the rest of the world? That's also, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Lego is part of that too. I don't know. I don't know if that was separate. I can't remember. But the idea is that, okay, people aren't doing a dip a toe in the water like they did with esports. They're doing a deep dive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Lego activation, they're putting a lot of money behind it. And I'm, personally, as a, someone who grew up with Legos, I'm really excited to kind of see that take shape and dive in. It'll be my first kind of, I think, true metaverse experience on it, honestly. But we've already seen it happen, right? With things like Chipotle and Roblox, and Adidas had activations, as well as a lot of fashion brands, which I think is super interesting. And as we think about different ways that brands are coming into the gaming ecosystem. And then for esports teams, we see like Misfits and others who have created jerseys and badges within different games. I think to kind of Jimmy's point, bringing up Epic, they stand to gain a lot here, owning the Unreal Engine and having other metaverses built on this. So that'll be kind of, I think, really interesting to watch for. And yes, someone points out that Epic owns Super Awesome. Super Awesome is Epic's agency, or it's an agency that Epic recently acquired, existed prior to that, specifically designed for activating brands in the metaverse, and with a focus on kind of being kid and teen friendly. They're a great company, and really excited to see how they activate different brands. Cool. Any final thoughts on the metaverse? I will share, So we asked a question in YouGov, and just to tee this up, YouGov has a panel of 5 million people in the U.S. and 18 million people worldwide, and we're asking them surveys about everything, their opinions on brands and the recent, upcoming current events and topics, their attitudes and things. So we asked a statement about, I'm confident I understand what the metaverse is, and how strongly do people agree to this statement? And we're able to filter that across people who identify as either hardcore gamers or casual gamers or dogs. And we found that 2/3 of self-identifying hardcore gamers say that they feel confident they understand what the metaverse is.
That's awesome.
It's actually 80% of hardcore gamers.
Wow.
By comparison, casual gamers are only 32%. So there's a direct correlation between being more of a gamer and understanding kind of what this metaverse trend means. Just to like set some boundaries around that, 55% of Americans age 18 to 34 also agree to this statement, versus 40% of the general adult population. So really, it's young consumers who are bullish on the metaverse. I don't think a real surprise there. We had another statement about, do you agree the metaverse will be the future of online interaction? And similar, 45% of 18 to 34-year-olds believe that it will be, versus 35% of all adults. So again, really skewing younger, not a surprise there. But sorry for the sound, Antonio. That would be my dog digging into the rug. He's usually a good boy, but not when I'm on a call. Any kind of thoughts there? Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, no, so I love all of these thoughts because, and also the chat, thank you guys for dropping your comments, the things that you've seen and anecdotes from Lego to Epic and Super Awesome to Balmain and Fortnite. All of these things indicate and point to the fact, like we've been saying, that the metaverse really is already here. It's not this thing. I mean, it still very much needs to be further developed and created. And what that is or looks like can mean a number of different things. And Adam, I see you. Thank you. And I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat as well. Meta Business is one of our products where we talk all things metaverse. It's a new podcast from Holodeck. And we cover trends and events and stories and businesses that are building out the metaverse. And to a lot of the discussion that we've been having today, what is that? Is there are there Web3 businesses, like this current question from Shayon, or is it NFTs, or is it collabs, right? And I think the answer is, honestly, it's all of these things. It's really at its core a social environment that takes place digitally. And if you think of the metaverse with that through that lens, it's been in existence as long as video games have, because that was really the first time you had an avatar, a digital representation of yourself, as well as an environment to hang out with your friends. And now just what we're seeing are different applications of that business taking place there with play to earn gaming, more in depth, I think, customization with your avatars, with NFTs and different item skins and things that you can own and customize. So, Facebook rebranding and launching that $10 billion fund. You had mentioned, Lego and Sony investing in Epic with $2 billion to create. What we're really going to see is that it's not going to be one central place. I think it's going to be a number of different digital environments. And it's really just going to be the idea of, whether it's like right now where we're doing this online with everyone instead of in person in Chicago this October with the ESTA, or in Vegas or any other location, where these events happen. It's a digital landscape, a digital interaction, and a way to, I think, engage with other people in a new way.
Well said.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I think to the question about, is it a connection to Web3? The short answer is yes. I think it will be built on Web3. It's the concept of Web3 is that us as individuals will be able to take ownership of our digital presence. And metaverses are interesting because, like Facebook, they're going to be owned by a particular company. But as we see more kind of interoperability and connection between them, and the ability to kind of carry our avatars between each of these places, that's where Web3 comes in. So we'll kind of have some ownership over what are NFTs, which will be our avatars essentially. Web3 is a very interesting conversation that could we're probably not the experts to talk about.
Yeah, that's a good panel. Right there.
But on kind of some final points around NFTs, YouGov, we also asked some questions on if people have ever purchased a digital collectible and if they plan to in the next 12 months. And I think there is an interesting point here. And sorry for anyone who heard some of this on the Business of Esports podcast last week, but kind of similar to understanding what the metaverse is, we see that more hardcore gamers, 1 in 4 says they've ever purchased a digital collectible. But that same group is only 12% say that they plan to in the next 12 months, which is less than the core mid-core gamer group, who 16% say they've ever purchased and 18% plan to. So there's maybe an interesting hypothesis that could be drawn here, which is hardcore gamers were early adopters of NFTs, and they haven't seen the return that they expected yet. So they're a little bit less bullish in the next 12 months until the trend picks up. Any thoughts there to the group?
I'm definitely one of those. I didn't want to be a late adopter, and I think the best way to learn what's going on in the NFT space was to get involved and put my money where my mouth is. So I was involved in a number of communities. It was funny. I noticed that for every one that I got right, I could be wrong with 10 others because the profits were so lucrative that it covered the rest of those investments. But more than a money-making opportunity, it was also really a community-driven event. All of these NFTs in these community were really opportunities to cultivate strong communities of people that were interested in the metaverse, in Web3, and in this new innovative technology and industry. So I'm in a number of communities still because I think the information that they're sharing is valuable, and I like to know what they're doing, how they're applying NFTs and creating value for their customers or for their users. But like you had said, Ben, with the reluctance to reinvest or to continue investing, I think there was definitely a lot of hype and craze around January, February, and we're all just kind of waiting to see if that holds and hopefully picks back up. So I think most people have made strong investments and are probably just in a waiting game now.
I agree. I think I was also one of those eager investors, if you will, and I just finished 3 weeks ago, finished my taxes, and I hit that part of TurboTax where it's like, have you gone through virtual currency? And, going through all of that, I'm like, okay, here we go. And of course, that number wasn't as high as I was anticipating. But to your point, Jimmy, anticipating that people are waiting on that people are waiting on that payout. You have things like FlickPlay and Sandbox are doing blockchain assets in the metaverse. People are paying it out. People are expanding beyond the NFT, going into other entities as far as what they're anticipating the consumers are going into. So it's almost like one of those, again, I'm a military family member, so hurry up and wait situations, anticipating the prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That's really kind of going off of what they're saying. We'll see what the cards will play with that.
Yeah, all great points.
Great comments going on in here as well.
Great comments.
To highlight what's going on. Yeah.
I'm just reading through some of these here. Mm-hmm. You're right, Anthony. It is difficult to adopt into gaming as it's presently seen. We're definitely talking about. What do you guys think? Kind of the event horizon is on this. Like, are we 5 years out from there being some true integrations here? Is it 10? Like, what are your thoughts if we just were to put our philosophy hats on?
Like, what level of integration? Like what sorry, this pushback on, like integration as in saying, that businesses will start creating an entire metaverse department, or, what right. type of, because I feel
we're already seeing metaverse businesses. Right. So yeah, I think it probably is just 5 years until some agencies are ahead of this, but until kind of any digitally focused agency needs to have a metaverse or NFT special division. I think that's well within 5 years, where kind of your big guys are all there, if not, a year.
I would think even a little shorter, depending on how you define it or look at it. We've seen Nike and Adidas and Universal Music and so many big players make very strong moves into the space. One thing that I actually was I had a call about this morning was the Dr. Disrespect NFT that he used as a pre-sale mechanism for his first-person shooter that he's developing. So anyone that's a fan of Dr. Disrespect and watches him on YouTube and his streaming, probably knows that he has a studio now that's developing a first-person shooter to compete with Call of Duty and other large titles. And instead of selling pre-orders to the game, they sold an NFT. And I can't remember if the information that was shared was public or not, so I'll probably hold on to that because I would hate to spill anything. But it was a very strong pre-sale. It was adaptation and utility of an NFT. Like we were saying, it's really a way to mobilize communities. Also, a lot of people, when they think NFTs, think OpenSea, they think digital art. They don't necessarily think Solana, blockchain, or other, Magic Eden and some other NFTs that are actually really used to launch new coins and kind of are more like buying stocks and bonds where you're really just investing in a company. The NFT has little value from an artistic perspective, but again, is like your ticket into that community, into that liquidity pool with staking mechanisms and weekly payouts. So, I saw some comments in the chat about what's the utility here and is that going to keep it going? We've seen U.S. Postal Service, Marvel, Disney, all of these companies do really strong metaverse plays. So I think the interest is there. I think the names are there. And it's really just a matter of, I think, like we were all saying, a wider adoption and more consistent in use, right? Right now, people are buying, investing, and then trying it out. So it's a matter of if they double down.
And I see here you talk about widening, right? Your comments about IRL, in real life activations. And this is where Ben has a data hat. I'll put on my event hat and saying any type of internet activations that we're having, we want to bring to real life, right? We're starting that with AR, VR, any type of augmented reality, Oculus, incredible, right? Things like that. But really where we're looking now in the event technology firm is taking a digitization of an attendee base itself and putting it out in front of an event before it even exists, right? So what that means is that those events, the Dior fashion show happening in the metaverse, right? How is that going to apply to Paris Fashion Week and the circular economy of the amount of money that event brings to the city of Paris itself, right? Where would that money go if it's going straight to a Dior metaverse fashion show rather than the Paris fashion show itself? So again, great point, Anthony, about bringing that up. And I think that's something that we're definitely navigating as far as how we translate that, not only for the gaming experience, the fan experience, the streamer experience, but also the experience of the invoice on the other end of when the event stops and how do you get it through.
That's awesome. It's really cool. You're right at the right at the tables planning these things out. And I'll say, just bring this back to esports fans. Those questions about ever purchase or plan to. A fifth, 22% of esports fans say that they plan on purchasing a digital collectible in the next year. And that is nearly twice as much who have ever purchased one, 13% who have purchased one in the past. So I think that just goes to show there's a lot more, recently, there's a lot more kind of enthusiasm for these collectibles, even than there has been last year where we saw, a big explosion. Just going back to these comments again.
Quite a few.
Go ahead.
No, I know they've been put up on the screen. So for those of you watching and engaging, thank you for sharing your own thoughts and comments.
Yeah.
I have limited experience and involvement with DAOs, or I've heard them called DAOs, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Thank you for that, Anthony. My experience with that is really putting the power back in the hands of the community, allowing the holders of that NFT to vote on what the project invests in or to vote on what the project does next. So it's a nice way to kind of the wonderful thing about NFTs and Web3, right, is that everything is visible. So, for example, even the owners, you can see their wallets, how much they're holding, you see the wallet of that NFT and what that company has available to spend and then where it is spending it. Everything is publicly viewable. So a lot of the communities, the NFT communities that I like to be a part of, offer us the ability to vote on what those next steps are. It could be a good and a bad thing, because if you have an unsophisticated user base, right, then maybe they're voting on things that you personally disagree with. But it is a true democracy, so there's something nice about that.
That was
I think in the mention of the democracy, Anthony also mentioned the SEC, the government, starting to look into this space very soon. From what we're seeing as far as FedRAMP compliancy, and we're really here on esports and gaming, right? But for the FedRAMP compliancy, what you're seeing for virtual events that we're doing, any type of ADA compliance, FedRAMP compliance, SEC compliance, the idea that they're using websites like openinsider.com, which is tracking the aggressive investments of congresswomen and men, senators, et cetera, is showing that they're preparing that type of portfolio, especially in the departments like interior and things like that. I highly recommend, and I specialize in government events here in DC, so I highly recommend you take a gander into that agency as well if this is something that really interests you.
And I see Chris here saying he's curious on Meta Oculus sets and those sales. I'm also curious, Chris, because obviously AR and VR are strong applications of metaverse technology. And then Cheyenne, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, asking for dangers to look out for. One of the dangers that I see all the time are scams and grifters. People that are launching fake NFTs. I get ads on Instagram claiming that Gary Vee and others are investors in this NFT. Yeah. If you're on Discord, you're getting DMs from people asking you to click this link to mint or to be on the whitelist for a new NFT. Always do your own research. Only click links from people you trust. And I've only gotten involved in NFTs from other people that I trust as well. And then usually that NFT will be listed on OpenSea, or they'll have a website, they'll have a Discord. Discord will have an official link. And the Discord will also tell you not to click links from DMs from anyone claiming to be affiliated, that every communication is done through public channels, the same way transactions are on public ledgers, listed on blockchain. So look out for scammers and people that are trying to do private direct communications, or for businesses or brands that are claiming to have some wild, partners or affiliations. Everything should be on their official Discord, Twitter, etc.
Great information there. And in a final point, because I think it's an interesting trend from YouGov data, we asked another statement about, are you worried about the potential implications of a metaverse? And it's interesting to see the correlation between, again, the more hardcore someone identifies as a gamer, the more bullish and excited they are for the metaverse and NFTs and, the like. But also the more likely they are to be worried about, the implications of this. That was a bit of a broad statement. We don't drill into implications of what, implications to society or the world or whatever it might be. But I think Jimmy is maybe we'll use you as a use case here. You're clearly someone who's gotten to know the space super well, are directly involved with some businesses in the space. And so you're most educated also about the concerns and the watch outs that any consumer should be aware of. So, just a good reminder that we all need to, educate ourselves and be careful. Okay, switching gears a little bit, but actually still related. NFTs are a new version of collectibles, and Call of Duty announced they're launching trading cards. So what are your thoughts here, guys? I think there's other, this can kind of highlight, we can talk a little bit about the trend of gaming studios and publishers expanding into new forms of entertainment. We have, Riot with the Arcane series. We have the Sonic the Hedgehog sequel doing, I think exceeding box office expectations. Is gaming going to take over every part of our lives? It seems it is.
I think what's interesting about gaming is that people have now created it as an umbrella. And then you have sport, hospitality, lifestyle, food, beverage, versus gaming used to just be a pillar underneath an umbrella. You're seeing that switch. When I heard about the trading cards, the 90s kid in me did a happy dance. You know what I mean? So even now, I've got nieces and nephews who are actively back into trading cards. And so I think this will be something that I'd be interested to see how this will be affected in the metaverse, not to tap back into the metaverse conversation, but especially with COD and their demographic that they're highlighted in between was a genius. In my opinion, I'd be interested to see what Jimmy thinks. In my opinion, I thought it was a genius move.
Yeah, I was actually really excited about this as well. We covered it last week on our Business of Esports podcast. I was a huge 90s card collector also, Rebecca. So it was an event every week to go to the card shop and buy baseball or basketball or what have you cards. And very recently, too, before COD announced this, there was a huge trend, I think, in trading cards for Pokemon and other crossover IP where you saw, cartoons, comic and anime culture and that had applications in gaming as well. And actually a very good friend of mine who I had known to land some very large sponsorship deals for some tier one esports orgs left his post doing that and went all in on trading cards, opened up a shop in Florida and seems to be doing very well with it. So it's definitely one of those crazes or hypes that are back in popularity. I hope it stays for a while. But we've seen so much bad news come out of Activision Blizzard, except for the acquisition with Microsoft. But we've seen so much bad news there that I don't want to dirty our conversation with. But it's nice to see a win for them. It's nice to see Call of Duty having a fun. And this is obviously a shorter story for us to cover, but it's just it's cool. It's cool. It's fun. It gets people excited, I think, and it also for me solidifies what we've known or what we've come to learn, and that's that esports really being a mechanism to drive sales and attention through other creative ways, right? So you come for the competition, you come to see people compete because they're very good and you want to see how the best performs. But then, how is it monetized? A lot of teams are still trying to figure that out. The publishers and the developers are doing a great job saying, hey, let's sell in-game skins or let's sell now real world tangible goods. So I like that there are creative ways that businesses are looking into and figuring out and using to generate profit. Because at the end of the day, there's no industry without something profitable. And that has been a real question and a real concern over the last few years is, can we justify these insane valuations when the profits weren't quite matching? So pretty excited. I do think most of the value though on these cards is on the secondary market.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's where I go back to my Patrick Ewing Knicks card in 1998. That's where it comes down to. But it'd be interesting to see what the secondary market would be for COD. Because I feel like the niche market, when you're talking about evaluation, that's an evaluation that I think won't be a bad ROI at all.
Yeah, I mean, really interesting to see. And also, I don't think I watch LCS. I'm not so like in the weeds with the Call of Duty League. I'm sure there are all-star gamers there that a lot of people who are viewers of CDL know. I'm curious to see what the longevity of not just these careers but also these names are for the trading cards. So that'll obviously impact the secondhand market and kind of long term. So really interesting to see. Any comments on Riot and others moving into traditional media, movies and TV? I think Arcane was an epic show. I really enjoyed it. I have not watched the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. I don't have kids or young cousins, but it's clearly very popular.
Yeah.
I would love. Oh, sorry. Go for it, Rebecca.
No. Sorry. I know Jim and I are both like, I'll go. I think really what it came down to, I think, was Free Guy last summer with Ryan Reynolds. Right. So you had Sonic, but I think Free Guy was that one that just blew the door open. You had children and adults together in one. And I feel like Sonic is incredible because that was the first one where they actually listened to the audience and redid Sonic's exterior to make him look more consumer friendly. Right. So I think it's that idea of listening to the consumer and that the gamers are in the control chair. And that's something that many other entertainment markets, I don't think have been used to. They're used to dictating what they will consume versus they're listening. They have the gamer's ear for that. And I think what we're seeing, although controversial with Amazon games as well, is going to, again, a whole nother panel, but that's another name I think to throw in there. Adam. Yeah. Arcane is awesome. Agree.
The application of IP across gaming and cinema or other forms of media is just so exciting, right? Because that's also it's what we had talked about with my company and kind of why we thought to create a media business to capture audiences. And I think no one's doing it better than Riot. Personally, they're one of my favorites. But you do see, like Rebecca had said with Free Guy. I mean, even before then with The Witcher on Netflix, The Last of Us is coming to HBO. we've also seen a lot of failures, right? With like the original Mario movie, and we're hoping the next Mario movie that they're doing is going to be better. I like the original Mario one, but it doesn't get the same love, I think, in the community.
I do remember that Final Fantasy movie back in the day.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great movie.
That blew my socks off.
Yeah, it was really good. I want more of those.
Exactly. They're all 17 of them. Just keep going.
Yeah, right.
Land Before Time.
That was 2001. I just had to look it up.
But exactly right. We have all these great movies and TV shows to thank and to look to, and I think they're only going to get better because these games are realizing that the publishers are realizing that if they want to continue to engage with their audience, they need to do it beyond the video game, and that's where the metaverse discussion comes into play again, right? Because it's all about engaging with a digital IP or with a digital environment with your fans, and giving them the opportunity to also become digital and be in that same universe. So the movie doesn't necessarily offer that, but it's just another touch point. And I think as a company, you need to find as many touch points as you can where, you know, maybe I'm watching Super Mario and I'm playing it on my DS, but then I'm going to Super Mario World in, where are they building that? Tokyo, I think, right? And so you have all of these different things to do around that same brand. All the dollars going back to Nintendo, but really fulfilling, I think, the love of that culture and the love of that brand for the fans that want to experience it in new and innovative ways.
Awesome. Moving on, pivoting to something a bit different. We've seen in various ways throughout the industry, ways that companies, nonprofits, and others have mobilized the gaming community for good. And I think I pulled some stats here on gamers and environmentalism. There's been a few efforts that are it's kind of contradictory, I think, at first, or people will think, well, why would we go after people who spend so much time in a digital world to have them care about the physical world? But that's not true. We all live in the physical world, at least for the time being. And the YouGov data shakes out too that people who are more engaged with gamers, similar to NFT and metaverse, they are also more likely to consider themselves environmentalists, more likely to feel that companies should do more to minimize their environmental impact, or that climate change is one of the biggest threats to our civilization, and they over-index on these things, the most hardcore gamers compared to their 18 to 34-year-old peers. What do you guys think? I know, Rebecca, you've done a lot of work in kind of education, being another way that esports is I think promoting goodness in the world and elevating people's skills that can be applicable outside of gaming too, just into their careers in general. But let me open it to you guys. Gaming for good. What are your thoughts?
Two before I spout, two aisles I'm going to respond to, and Ben, you can hold me accountable or rein me back in. So I think Games for Change is incredible, right? And I think really what they're doing, they have launched a virtual diplomacy project around a year and a half ago with the State Department. That's incredible, right? That's thinking ahead. That really appeals to that younger demographic that is socially progressive, digitally fluent, and much more likely to be environmentally friendly. So I think, Ben, when you're talking about the YouGov data that's retaining that type of gamer, it's very often pulling not so much of the game or the what gamers are themselves. It's more likely the age demographic of what they are. It's statistically proven through YouGov research and my own research that the younger you get, the more community-minded, experientially minded, less materialistic these consumers are. Games for Change harnesses that by running through a nonprofit and making sure it's applicable through all type of levels and industries, right? You're going through government, you're going through nonprofit, you're going through education themselves. The second part of that is the education itself, right? There's a huge knowledge gap that's being closed so fast of what esports and gaming is, right? And a lot of that was part of the metaverse in the last 8 months, what it means, how you can game together yet alone, the type of concept of building friends in that atmosphere. The parents are watching their children are no longer as hesitant because they spent 2.5 years quarantined at home watching their kids play these games into really what they're doing. And that will build on to what does that mean for the children as they grow up in the education of what are careers in your sport and esports and event technologies, which I'll talk about later, and how that looks into a demographic that you're not only trying to get to buy your product, but you're also trying to get to work for your product. So it's a twofold.
Yeah. And, and you're right. You're there. That's what Hargrove does, right? You're a growing company, hiring people out of college who are passionate about gaming, and probably didn't until recently realize that there could be a career in creating live or virtual gaming events, like the awesome work that you guys do. Jimmy, thoughts?
No, I love the discussion. I think businesses just need to think what's important to that next age consumer, to that next age user, to that next generation, and to the points that have already been shared. If you don't have a purpose that advances some type of societal interest, then you're kind of missing what's important to the next generation that are quickly matriculating and coming into the workforce. And that's one of the reasons why I love teaching at UC Irvine also, is because, like you had mentioned, it's that two-pronged approach where they're passionate about something, but you don't have to be LeBron James to work in the NBA. You don't have to be a pro video gamer to work in esports. It's really just having that common thread and that common interest. But that's also a big reason why we founded. Well, I'm not a founder. I'm an early investor. But why we created XSET was, there's nonprofits and they're obviously much or well needed. There's businesses that do have charitable purposes and initiatives. And we thought, well, how do we combine and make this one of our core principles, where we can have an org that advances the voices of underrepresented gamers that are traditionally from certain demographics, and try and provide those same opportunities to people that have been overlooked in the past. So honestly, just echoing, I think, what you guys have said with my own personal anecdotes, that I also see it's needed. I also see how important it is to the younger generations. And it's great when you see our industry really pioneering a lot of that change, with so many examples, right, that we could draw from, as opposed to thinking and finding that one or two and then saying we need to do more. Obviously, you always need to do more, but it's nice to know that there's a lot of change happening, and a lot of voices, I suppose, that are being heard, and action that responds.
Yeah, agreed on all fronts. And it's powerful to see how organizations like FlyQuest and they've really taken on environmentalism as a core tenet for their business. They changed their logo around it. Or Evil Geniuses does a lot around diversity and inclusion. And it's no secret. I think one of the things that the esports community is known for is the diversity and the acceptance of all different types of people. So it's really cool seeing that now trickle up, if you will, to the way that these companies, core tenets of them, and how they're operating at large. Awesome. Gaming for good. We'll be staying all over that. And there are some awesome organizations involved with the ESTA who are pioneering a lot of this. Rebecca, we were talking a bit, you talked a little bit about job opportunities, and perhaps it's a good opportunity just to mention the ESTA job fair is coming up pretty soon. Rebecca, if you have more information, can you share that with the group here?
Absolutely. So as we're sitting here on current trends in esports. One of the current trends that we're seeing is the workforce is disrupted. The amount of jobs that we have and the amount of people that we have, it's a matchmaking time, right? We got to match people to what their skill sets are, to what the jobs are available. Encore Technology, or Encore, the parent company of Hargrove, is hosting an Esports Trade Association career fair this Thursday, April 21st at 12 p.m. Central Time. So really, the registration link is dropped here in the comment. I really encourage you, Jimmy, if there are students in your class, if there are people looking for a career change, if there are people who are just interested, Encore has a plethora of event technology jobs that are available and useful, that match exactly the skill set of gamers and esports themselves. So I'll use this time also to mention, what we're seeing is that I cannot not mention this, but E3, right? The nostalgic event flagship plethora of event and gaming was canceled, right? Where we are and how, what that means to us gamers is also really not a huge indication of where the industry is going. It's exciting, it's involved, it's growing. It's a great time to join us. So we really encourage you guys to join us here on Thursday 21st. I'll be there with my colleagues James Hess, who's also incredibly involved in Esports Trade Association. So we look forward to meeting you guys and matching you up with some great roles within our company.
Love it. Love it. And yeah, I think the E3 is interesting. I kind of have a theory that E3 was one of the first, and now there have been a lot of new events that have risen up and taken prominence. And that just kind of more competition. They had a hard time adjusting to that, or felt it was an uphill battle they weren't ready to take on right now as we're coming out of the pandemic. Any other thoughts there? That's my take.
Yeah, Entertainment Software Association, based in DC, had the association of disruptions that so many associations had, right? So very often for association events, that's a member-based revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
For government events, the revenue is taxpayer dollars. For corporate private events, the revenue is brand-based. So for the membership of ESA to have the amount of disposable income be redistributed during 2020, it would have been very difficult to have it at the standard that ES is. So in my personal opinion, people are saying it's dead forever. You can't say that. That we've learned so much the last 2 years that dead forever really means, oh, it's dead for 3 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what it comes back to being and how I can navigate through that.
Agreed there. Jimmy, any other thoughts on E3?
On E3, I'm sad to see that it was canceled. I would rather speak honestly on the job fair and just say how awesome that is as a resource for the listeners. A lot of people think that jobs in gaming and in esports are engineering and senior product manager roles and something that's highly technical. And you definitely see a lot of those, but it's not the case. I work in a biz dev and a biz ops capacity. And I've noticed over the years that getting, as the industry grows, the opportunities also grow. I think if you have an open mind about wearing multiple hats and realizing, depending on the company that you're applying for, it's going to be more specific if you're applying for like a Blizzard. But if it's a startup or a younger company, they're going to want multiple hats. They're going to want a breadth of experience, creative thought. And so I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to see what's available and definitely a hope that you check it out.
Yeah, echoing all of that, for my seat, working with teams, agencies, brands, it's fascinating to see where people kind of jump around to. So there's a lot of people out of traditional sports who are now in esports, or who are at kind of traditional agencies that are now really focused on gaming activations. So yes, there are jobs for every type of expertise and professional out there within the esports world. That's for sure. I'm excited to tune in for the job fair in the coming weeks here.
Oh, good. Yeah, we have over 1,000 positions open. So come on down, as
awesome.
they say.
Well, I just want to learn more about what you guys do. Wow, 1,000. That's a lot of jobs. And then as we're kind of wrapping up here, we didn't get into all of our topics, but we covered a lot of ground. This is a good chance to remind people about the Esports Next conference coming up in August. I think there's a lot of listeners here who have already registered, and I'm excited to see you guys again. But for new people here, tell your friends that are in the industry. The conference is amazing. I met so many people last year. It was my first time meeting Jimmy in person, although we talked a little bit before then, and Rebecca as well. But it's just great to get there in person and see people face to face and mingle and learn from so many folks. And the caliber of speakers that come to the conference is just bar none. Really, really excellent event, and hope a lot of people can turn out. Any kind of final thoughts here? Questions from the crowd in the chat? Anything you'd like for us to talk about? Or else I think we'll call it here with 5 minutes to spare.
I wanted to thank everybody for sharing their lunch with us. And thank you, Jimmy and Ben. The ESTA has provided great opportunities, and highly encourage anyone here to be a member, to be active. I'm sure I know I've benefited from the group. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, guys. Jimmy, Rebecca, everyone else out there, have an awesome afternoon. Check out the ESTA, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon.